So hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perceive 2021. We've got a special treat for this panel, 3 awesome data science and AI educators. Please give a warm welcome to our distinguished guests. Tina Huang is a data scientist at a FANG company and runs a popular YouTube channel about data science, learning, and productivity. Ken G is head of data science at Scouts Consulting Group and runs the hashtag 66 Days of Data Challenge to help people create the habit of learning and working on projects every day. And Andrea from AI Coding works to keep inspiring and helping beginners in the field of machine learning to start their careers, and her goal is to increase women representation in the field of AI. Welcome to our virtual stage, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So let's get started. I guess I can start with Ken since he's a very talkative guy. How did you get into AI or data science, and why did you stay?
I'll try and give the SparkNotes version, but I got into the data science domain because I was following questions about myself. I was always interested in improving my athletic performance. That was something that was front of mind for a lot of years. I played golf in college and then eventually went on to play it professionally. And I realized that if I could quantify my performance, there were ways that I could improve it by understanding it from a math perspective, whether it's from statistics, whether it's building models to understand like the variance of my performance. This was something that I found helped me when the people I was competing against didn't have access to that. After I stopped playing golf competitively, I realized that I could start to predict performance of professional athletes. I could start playing daily fantasy sports. I could dive into this other domain using the skills that I accumulated, analyzing my own performance. And so I kept chasing these questions. And inevitably, in order to answer these questions around sport performance and predicting outcomes, I had to accumulate a skill set. So after I started to really dive deep into these questions and accumulate skills surrounding those, I found myself in a position where I had a really good coding skill set. I had a really good statistics background. And I looked back and I said, oh, what's this data science field? I kind of already am doing a lot of those things, all because I was pursuing this passion of mine and this interest. Now I'm still in it because I work in sports analytics. And I also I really enjoy creating content and providing education about how to break into this field, when for me, it was just this strange pursuit. Not a lot of people have a question, a burning project, a desire to learn more and to apply these skills to it. And so hopefully I can start through the content that I create to set a framework or give people expectations about what they can see when breaking into this field and when learning the material.
Okay, great. What about you, Andrea?
Yeah, so I think from my side, I actually got into data science by chance, I can say. So a bit about my background, like I was very passionate when I was a kid about music and photography. So I went directly into studying things like acoustics, image processing, and then I got really into computer graphics, just designing video games, because it was one of the subjects that I had in my bachelor's. And I actually went to study computer graphics, and they kind of hide computer vision in between those subjects. So I started getting into really loving how you can apply things to images, because I was doing a lot of photography back then. So I started getting into that, and by the time I graduated, I was like, okay, so what should I be now? I should be obviously like a computer vision engineer. And definitely didn't happen because the market here in Europe was like very, very, very small. So what I did is just to think what are my skills, basically, what can I do? And then I started researching like what can someone with, machine learning, images, acoustics, basically I realized that I knew how to process all the data that is out there, basically. So that's how I eventually got in. I started actually understanding that there's this huge field where I can just, take advantage of both what I love doing and making really cool things. And I love staying because I actually got some cool jobs around a lot of mixture between software engineering, machine learning, and data science. It wasn't really 100% focused on data science. I could just use anything that I love. And I felt that it was very, very creative kind of thing, just the same as just taking a picture is very creative. So building something on top of that picture is very creative too. So that's why I stayed.
Oh, cool. And Tina?
How did I get into data science? That's a good question. I feel like we have to start off a few years back when I was in the University of Toronto, same as Ian over here. and I was pre-med. So I was studying pharmacology, wanted to become a doctor. Realized a little bit too late in my fourth year that I did not actually want to be a doctor. And then essentially didn't know what to do with myself, because if you're studying pharmacology, there's essentially the path of going into being a doctor, being a nurse, being a pharmacist, or doing research. So I didn't know what to do with myself, so I went into research. And then while doing that, I kind of stumbled across the field of bioinformatics, specifically genomic research. And it's kind of like a biology form of data science, or it's the applied biology, specifically in applied data science in bioinformatics. That time, no idea what data science was, didn't know what that was. It was pretty much like couldn't figure out what to do with my life. So I just kind of did that for a little bit, and then realized that there is such a field as data science. But that wasn't actually I didn't immediately go to data science after that. I did a master's in computer science because I wanted to open as many doors as possible. I just knew that computer science is a field that is extremely applicable to many things. So I didn't go in honestly being like, I'm going to be a data scientist. I went into computer science, kind of did all the coding stuff, was more like on the track of becoming a software engineer. Until, again, like very serendipitous, I can never pronounce that word, serendipitous, thank you, Ken. Yes, recruiter reached out to me about data science. I'm like, all right, so I started, okay, that's not true, actually. I applied for a lot of data science positions, in addition to software engineering positions, got rejected from everything. And then a recruiter reached out to me for a full-time position after my master's, being like, oh, you should do this interview. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So then I just did that, and that's how I ended up becoming a data scientist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I stayed because I think it's quite fun. I quite like it.
Sorry, you're telling me you didn't just watch one of my videos and want to go into data science? What the heck, Tina?
That happened. Ken, I discovered you after I got my job, so you're a little late.
I'm kidding. I should have started making videos 2 years earlier. Yeah,
you could have changed my life. Well, you still did change my life. Don't worry.
All right. So how about one practical advice you give to somebody starting out, or any mistakes or any changes you would do? If you want, Tina, why don't you just continue? We'll keep mixing up the order.
Oh no, I wasn't paying attention. What did you say that again?
Were there any mistakes that you would change in the past about the way you went about it, or are you just happy with however everything worked out?
It's one of those things where you look back and you're like, I am here where I am right now because of all the things that happened by chance. But do I regret? Do I have regrets in life? I have many regrets in life. Don't get me started. It's going to be the whole panel. But specifically, I think what I wish I had known when I was much younger was to be more open-minded, because at that time, especially when I was still in pharmacology, in my brain, it was literally, I have to either become a doctor, a pharmacist, a nurse, or do research. And that was the end, right? I was this is clear. There's nothing else there for me at 19 years old. This is the rest of my life. What I really wish I had done is just be a little bit more open-minded, explore a little bit more, not just be so obsessed with the career tracks that are already pre-laid out for you. And I think that would I have ended up where I am today? I don't know, maybe, but I think I would have opened up a lot more opportunities for myself.
What about you, Andrea? Anything you would have changed in your development?
Totally agree with Tina on this. Definitely. I think on that same path, I was really, really focused on my career. Just continue your normal path, just do your bachelor's, do your master's. And I wish I would have went into YouTube before. I wish I had, all these different views of what you can actually do after you graduate. That's something that I consider I did a mistake. Maybe also back then, I don't remember when I graduated, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. There was not a lot of content.
I go through that. I get asked how old I am.
There was not a lot of content.
Same answer. Wait, I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know when you guys started your YouTube channel, but definitely back then I couldn't find many things many people actually sharing their story. What do you do after you study computer vision if you don't find a job in computer vision? I didn't know, right? So that's one of the things I would have changed, is just research a bit more on that before, diving all into what I was doing.
That's precisely why I started making videos in the first place. Is I went to YouTube. That's the first place that I would look. And there wasn't anyone who could share the experience of like, how do you even break into this field? What are the basics? Where do you start? Any of that stuff. And I said, okay, well, if I'm going through it, I might as well share my experience. And I'm actually really grateful that there are more people now, because I don't want anyone to think that my story is the only way to do this, right? By multiple people coming in and sharing their experiences, people get a better understanding of like what the possibilities are. I can only share what I've gone through or the people that I've talked to, and that's a fairly small sample size. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people on my podcast, but at the same time, that's still not that many people compared to the broad scope of the field. So I really welcome, and I'm really excited that more people are getting into that conversation. In terms of what I would do differently, I'm kind of in the same boat as Tina. I actually don't have any regrets. I am who I am today because of the experiences that I've had, even the not so great ones.
Hashtag no regrets. Okay,
yeah,
go
exactly.
on.
but I would say, in a similar vein, I really encourage people to be curious, to ask a lot of questions, not only of the field, but of yourself. Like, it's important to be introspective about if this career is even right for you. I mean, there are a lot of people that say, oh, okay, a data scientist, it's the sexiest job of the 21st century. There's a lot of opportunities, you make good money. And then they sit down and do their first project and they just hate it, right? But they're like, oh, I've hyped this up to myself. There must be something wrong with me to not like this field or something like that. And no, that's not the case. There are different things that make people successful in this domain or have aptitude for it or even like it. And you should listen to yourself about that. If data science is not a good fit for you, you shouldn't pursue it. If it matches your mindset or your skill set or whatever it is, well, absolutely pursue that domain. I mean, for me, I don't necessarily love the coding. I don't love the math, but I like it enough to be able to use those things to solve the challenge, so to solve the problems that I am completely enamored with. And so for me, it works out because I have enough interest in the technical things to be able, and a huge amount of interest in the problems. And that balance works for me. Figure out what works for you. And the only way you can do that is through experimentation and testing and getting your hands dirty and that curiosity aspect.
So then just jump into the next question. What did you do at work yesterday?
Actually, I can say what I did this morning because it's like 9 p.m. today.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's 9 p.m.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I remember. Actually, the good thing about working in this field is that you get to do a lot of things, and sometimes you don't get to do any data science at all. So what I was actually a bit related to what I was saying before. I really love I like the coding aspect of data science. I like all the architecture and infrastructure. So I'm working with that right now. So I work today with drawing a plan for my team. It consists of a couple of developers, and I'm drawing the architecture on how it's going to fit data science into our current product. I work in a very small startup, which is scaling up. So we don't have an infrastructure yet. So I'm working on that. And at the same time, I'm starting to teach some classes in university. So I was preparing a bunch of lectures for some people that are studying software engineering. That's what I did today.
Oh, cool. I realized that when I wrote these questions, I hadn't factored in the fact that we might be doing this after a weekend. So I realized that was a bit of a self-gotcha there. So what I should have said was, what did you do on your last work day? But anyway, I guess we've got a ton of questions anyway, so we can just move to the next one to keep going. Yeah, what ethical challenges do you think are the most important in the field? And especially this, I've noticed there's definitely a spectrum of the public perception of AI and data science and how people sort of react to it. What do you think the ethical challenges are?
I really think that ethics in data science and in AI, it's a cat and mouse game, right? Our legislation, like the laws around data and this domain, are never going to keep up with the advanced, like the innovation and the speed that we do that. And so the biggest challenge is going to be assessing what the future is going to be, and also building laws that are scalable to be able to, legislate things that we can't even conceptualize yet. And I think that that's really challenging. You see huge differences in this in the US, in Europe, and in Asia. For example, Europe is a lot more careful with data privacy than even the US. China, on the other hand, the government owns all the data, and so they can make pretty aggressive advancements in a very specific human-related AI because they have access to a lot more data that you would never be able to get from people in the US. And so the playing field is not level. All of these different countries, all these different, I guess, like continents technically, are working in different data spheres and they're moving at different rates. And the ability to evaluate the safety of those things for humans over time across vastly different cultures and geographic locations is going to be something that I don't think we will ever figure out. But our job is to at least make it, safe for ourselves and make it so that we can sleep at night regarding what we put out there. I think the biggest thing for me is within this domain, what can we control is the individuals, and making sure that the data scientists, the machine learning engineers, the AI engineers that are working are personally accountable for what they put into the world. That's a really good place to start.
That's cool. I've always seen it sort of as a tool, and like any tool, it can be used in varying ways. We just had a recent one of our customers is developing software that can use cameras that are on helicopters that are used for search and rescue operations, and actually are able to identify like lost hikers on the side of mountains by analyzing several thousand photos.
I should say I'm a little biased. I teach a course called Designing Ethical AI Systems.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, that's definitely interesting. I mean, AI, because it is so incredibly powerful, there are a lot of ethical ramifications for everything in it. So, what changes then, do you think? What critical changes could we make, or what rules could we set then that would maybe rein some of this in, or a way to make ethical AI more realistic?
Again, I think the design decision that you can make is focusing on human-centric information, like human-centric design. So we're trying to think about the implications of every system on the individual rather than on the aggregate and the group. And I think that that's a really good baseline to set, is like what could happen to an individual person when you're building such a large and robust system, rather than thinking about, hey, what are the ramifications of profit or all of these things in a combined like aggregate setting. So that's not a concrete legislation. I don't think that there is one size fits all approach necessarily, but we these systems, because they work at such large scales, they take humanity out of a lot of things. And that's just something you simply can't do when you're making laws that also legislate individual people. Does Andrea have any thoughts on the ethics side? I'm pretty interested because Tina's from Canada, I'm from the US, and you're living in Europe. I think that there's
Yeah, I think actually I was going to ask you, like, I think the ethical implications is also pretty much related to, the experience and what you actually been working with. Because from all the years that I work in data science, I have not encountered myself with this type of issues because the companies have not really worked with any sensitive data, for example. So it's something that I haven't been really, not like putting my effort on it, but I don't do it in my daily job. But it's something that concerns me at the, just like, let's say like the big picture, right? But I haven't been able to actually assess that myself. I haven't seen any big corporations actually dealing with this type of things. So that's at least what like my perception. I don't think that I'm really much, the person to talk about this, because I work with things that are, I actually had a job that had a data scientist job that had no data. And
Tina has no experience in that. Yeah. So the other part that I didn't talk about, I'm really glad you brought that up, is that the data and data privacy and those types of things is the other huge side of this. And what people need to realize is that every single model that we build is biased in some way, right? Like there's no perfect uniform data set that is representative of everyone. And going in realizing that models are biased allows us to help evaluate how to control for these biases in their predictions. And that's going to be something that's also really important, is documentation on what data is going in, like what are the limitations of that data and those types of things to help understand the outcomes that we produce. A lot of the things that we have out there, these black box models, which are fine, they're very good at predicting things, but it's kind of important when you're legislating something to understand at least a little bit of how it works. And I think that some of the future frameworks that help us understand as humans how these deep learning models work are going to be really important in us understanding the implications of anything that we put into the world. So it's kind of this dual thing where we have to understand our models better. I mean, some of them have, billions of parameters and all these different things, which might not be feasible, but at least making the effort to is something that I believe is a step forward.
So are there any specific technologies you've seen recently that just made you go, wow, that's just unbelievable? I mean, I can give one example that I found is that I saw an interview with GPT-3 where they'd simulated it using an avatar, but the thing was making jokes and puns and they asked it if a cat could fly a rocket ship, and he said no, the cat would probably be distracted by the purring of the engine. But I'm just curious, has anybody seen anything recently that just made them sort of go, wow, this is going to completely change the world?
I think the one that really impressed me, it wasn't that recently, it was a couple of years ago, but yeah. OpenAI created a system that could beat people. I think it was at like League of Legends or one of these, I guess, I forget what the type of game it is, but it essentially like a pretty dynamic computer game. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was unbelievably wild, because it's not like chess or even Go where there's clear defined sets of rules that are not necessarily time bound. This is something that is very clearly time bound. Like time is a huge element of these things. Mm-hmm. And being able to factor that in and do this again in real time, that's something that is awesome, but also a little bit scary.
Well, can you guys think of any positive ways that people in AI or data science are improving the world?
I mean, millions. I was on a call just yesterday. Yeah. I'm trying to learn more about deforestation and reforestation. There's a couple cool projects that are going on. And the researcher that I was talking to, she basically was telling me about all the models they're using to predict where wildfires start, how they identify, similar to to what you were talking about, identifying people who are lost hiking, but identifying people who could be in danger of forest fire spread, or like predicting how quickly, once there is a fire, the spread is going to come. Unbelievable stuff relating to the environment. I wish there's more information on those types of things.
I'm not sure, Tina or Andrea, do you have any things that you've seen recently that just sort of really impressed you, or that you thought were making a positive impact in the world?
I think for me, this is also a few years back, although I still follow the field in bioinformatics, especially cancer research, where I was doing before. When I was in that field, it's around like 2015 or so when I was working there. It was in the very, very early stages. At that time, there was like a really big buzz because the first public proper data set actually got released about genetics and how it correlates to clinical side effects, as well as how it correlates to prognosis in certain cancers. And after that, I've just been blown away at how much innovation there has been in that area. Just, give some people a little bit of data, and then with every little tools that are newly built out and the amount of knowledge that we have now, it's just getting more and more every day. Like, it's all these like little factors that people didn't realize, all these little like ways of chaining of logic, because in genomic research, there's so many different variables, and that's one of those things that's very difficult for people to figure out. It's like with the connection between different types of things, and then how they correlate with each other. But when ML comes into that picture, it just becomes like, wow, like there's so many ways we just have such deeper understanding of how genetics influences cancer and how that prognosis work, and how clinically we can treat people based upon what genetic differences that they have.
All right.
Yeah, from my side, I can just add something very small. Actually, recently, one of my coworkers introduced me to this company called Debunked, which is from these countries in Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and they are working towards trying to improve, or not to improve, but maybe to delete or try to prevent misinformation and disinformation online, which I think it's something that it really touches me, because when I try to create content, I try to create something that does not harm people as well, right? I don't want people to get the wrong idea about data science, and I also don't want to start building blocks on top of things that are already built and create this this huge misconception about data science. So that's something that it's a group of data scientists with journalists that are trying really, really hard to combat this type of thing. So I think it's pretty cool.
What are some of the common misconceptions that people might have about data science or AI? Is there something when you tell people that you work in this, do people have some other idea of what you do?
I guess a lot. No, I just wanted to say, like, maybe something funny, something not. I think people think that I just create robots that are just going to take over the world or their jobs or something extremely catastrophic as a misconception. But of course, there's other minor things like I don't know. Like misconceptions can be like, if you need PhD or if you need other type of things. I think Tina, you wanted to mention something else. You can go ahead.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. Oftentimes, especially when I say I'm a data scientist, like people don't really know what that means exactly. And I think that's a very fair point, because data science is a field, AI, ML, all of this it's such a new field, right? So it's fair. Like they don't know what it means. And in fact, my job, I'm willing to bet, is extremely different from what any of you guys do. Like each of us are extremely different because it's a field that's so new and there's so much exploration to do. And it isn't solidified like what exactly a data scientist or like a machine learning engineer or someone who works in AI or ML even does. So lots and lots of misconception on that part. And another one that pops up a lot is similar to what Andrea you were mentioning, is that you just make some robots to do some things. It's like, I wish it was that easy, I'm kidding.
Or that cool.
It's like, like you know what I should do? Like, I'm just gonna go make a robot now. Like, it's not like that's not really how it works,
Yeah.
But kidding aside, like, I just want to emphasize the point. Like, I think the catastrophic nature that is like, I mean, people breed. It's like bad news spreads faster, right? So it's one of those things, and I think. There definitely, in this field, there's definitely a lot of controversies, and there's definitely a lot of things that we really do need to sort out. But there's also, this field it stems from goodness of data, right? We see how powerful data can be, and we see put in the right hands how much good can actually come out of it. And that's something that I wish that people would actually focus on a little bit more.
Well, Tina, to your point, my parents still have absolutely no clue what I do. Like, they're just like, oh, my dad tells people, so I mean, I have my master's in computer science. He tells everyone, he's like, oh, he got his master's in IT. And I'm like, Dad, that's a little bit different. It's totally fine though. Like, do you, man? I think my favorite misconception comes not about the people who work in the field itself, but how people get into the field. I find a lot of people who are looking to break in, they believe that everyone gets into the field in the same way. They're like, oh, they do X, Y, Z, they get their master's in like data science or computer science, and then they break in. And I am here to tell everyone that that is not the case. I've talked to essentially 2 or 3 data scientists in depth every week on my podcast, and I don't think 2 of them, maybe I don't think more than 2 of them have had a similar path into the field. The amount of ways that people break into data science is unbelievably diverse, incredibly rich. Everyone has their own unique path in. And to me, that's like a really beautiful thing, right? You want diversity of thought in this space. You want people to disagree with you a little bit. You want to make sure that, like, we're not all carbon copies of each other asking the exact same question of the data. That would mean, I think, companies that have workforces like that wouldn't be very good at their jobs, right? And so to me, that's really inspiring, or like, it has a lot of good juju around it for people that are trying to break in, because it means that they don't have to go down the same path as everyone else. They can leverage whatever unique skill set that they have, and that's probably going to help them in their career rather than hurt them.
Oh, cool.
I totally agree with that point, actually, of what you said, that one of the things that I get a lot from people is that when I share my experience, they immediately want to follow it. And then I get a lot of questions like, oh, so I should study acoustics or I should study image processing. It's like, no, why would you do that? Just do it if you like it. And you know, the thing is that data science is not a field, right, itself. It's not like, oh, you are a data scientist, so you just do data science. I mean, no, you, like I work, for example, in with IT infrastructure and cloud technology. And that is the field that I work in. And on top, I do data science, right? And other people just are doctors and they apply data science on top. So that was a very good point, actually.
Have you guys seen any really interesting trends in 2021? I know really currently deep learning is basically the hottest thing going, but is any other things you've noticed?
A trend that I am really liking, at least in the data science community, is that there are, again, more people who are sharing their experiences. I mean, that is, if we're thinking of ourselves, this is going to sound a little bit off the wall, but if we're thinking of ourselves like models, basically, right? Like we learn by consuming information, by like discriminating against like all the different things that we see and making a good path forward. The more data that we individually have about the experience can help us to make better informed decisions. And more people sharing their experiences, whether it's like doing projects, whether it's sharing what they're building and the unique applications, or whether breaking in the data science field, to me, that's an incredibly good thing, but because it helps other people make better informed decisions. And we're seeing that on like TikTok, we're seeing that on Instagram, we're seeing that on LinkedIn, we're seeing that on YouTube. And to me, people really talk about the negative things about content creation. But I think that this is one of the really positive trends within that domain, is that we're getting this diversity of thought. We're getting these different data points for us to improve our predictive, individual predictive outcomes.
If you want to tag on to that a little bit, so not necessarily content creation, but also for the Google Analytics courses, the certificates that's come out. I think there's been so much hype around that, and that's something that I'm really, really happy about, because I think people used to perceive data science, data analytics, just like that field of data as being extremely, extremely exclusive. Like we need certain degrees, you need to do certain things in order to get to that. But what Google pretty much made a stance about is like, hey, take the certificate and you can start working at Google, right? And Google is considered like that gold standard of what data science, data analytics could look like. And I think that's really given a lot of people confidence to start looking at their data, viewing it not in terms of what they can't do, but seeing like, hey, I have a data set, what can I do? How can I start learning about things? How can I figure out what I actually care about, and start delving into it? And that's made me extremely, extremely happy, because it just made that feel so much more open to people.
Yeah, no, I've done a number of the online like massive courses, and they're great. Although I have seen a number of times when people have put on applications that they've learned to completely 100%, not with 95% accuracy, predict the stock market, which is one of the funnier things I think I've seen. They're basically using time series data and then sticking stuff from the future
Why they
with their test and split, and they're using future data to their present. And anyway, but it's a bit funny. One of the issues that I have seen is that people sometimes just generate numbers, rely on the numbers without actually thinking what that means. And if for example, you could predict the stock market with 95% certainty, that likely means that you probably could just stop working entirely at that point. I think I've read that even if you could predict it with 51 or 52% accuracy, you'd probably be set for life. Anyway.
Well, actually, it depends on your time frame, right? Mm-hmm. If you're looking at the stock market over 50 years, if I made one prediction every 7 years, you could probably predict what direction it would go, right? So maybe I mean, that's a gross a gross misinterpretation of the data, but maybe it's all how you frame it, right?
Yeah,
that's a very good point to raise up, right? So data science is really not, it's like part science, part art. That's why I like to emphasize to people so much. Like you can't just throw data out there and make something and be like, I'm just gonna leave now. Like there's so much more that goes into it. The context matters so much, how you frame it matters so much, how you make what you see out of that data, like anything that you produce out of it it really does matter so much. Like people would like to see data as being the source of truth, and it is in a way the source of truth, but the way that we perceive truth is extremely context dependent. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. So one we're almost out of the list of questions I'd originally generated. This is good. We're doing fine on time. So this I have no idea if you guys are going to have an answer to this one, but what's a question you are most tired of hearing on the subject and you'd like to say it and never have to answer it again? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Just on the subject, or that I get in my inbox?
You know what? Let's go with your inbox, because that's probably a lot more entertaining.
The question that I always get, and it drives me nuts, is like, first thing someone asks me, I've never communicated with them before, like, will you be my mentor? And I believe in mentorship. I think it's important, but mentorship is a relationship, right? It's a give and a take. I also don't have time to mentor 5,000 people individually, right? That would be astronomical in terms of my mental health and a bunch of other things. But I think people need to realize that there are other ways to learn this field. And I actually believe that in data science, mentorship in the early stages is something that could hurt you. Like, one of the most important things within this field is being able to work through problems on your own, to like get stuck, like search a bunch of stuff on the internet. Like, there aren't always clear answers that are out there. And the ability to solve your own problems, in my mind, is one of the most important things that you can learn early on, is realizing there are resources out there that can help you. Like, if an individual is coming in and mentoring you and helping you too much too early, I think that they're shortchanging you for a lot of the learning that you would like benefit from yourself. I think mentorship in terms of career, in terms of some of these other things, is great, but it's really difficult when I see people without trying to form a relationship, without someone asking, like, what, this is going to sound bad, but what do I get out of a mentorship relationship? Yes, I enjoy helping people, but like, I am sacrificing my time. I'm sacrificing opportunity to do other things. I produce all of this content on the internet because I can do mentorship at scale. Everything that I would say to this person is in a video that I put online. To me, that's really frustrating that people think that, their time is so much more valuable than my time, but because that's what a question like that does. That's what they are asking. If you take away all of the other things, it's like, you should help me for this hour of time because, my time to learn this is more valuable than your time at this point in time. And so I think that that's a frustration. I would say, if people have already made a relationship with me, if people have like engaged with me, they're my friends, I'll spend probably a lot more time than I should mentoring these people. But to come out of the gate and ask something like that is very frustrating to see on my front.
That's what I did to you, Ken.
Yeah, but you had a really good story. You had a lot of social proof. You had a lot of like info, and you didn't ask me to mentor you.
Oh
right?
yeah, no, I didn't. I only did that like 2 emails later. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, like, Tina's a really good example. When she reached out to me, she had landed her job already, and she had said, she was asking a very specific, pointed question. If I thought you should take that job at the time, right? Or something around that.
Yeah, I think it was, I was trying to decide at that time if I should go with software engineering or data science. I think it was something like that.
And like, that's a very different story. That is her not asking me to like this very broad and unquantifiable thing of mentorship. It's asking a very specific pointed question that I can have a hopefully intelligent answer to, that I haven't answered in a video, right? Because that's unique to her situation. Those are things that almost always I will respond to.
So foot in the door technique, marketing technique. Take heed, people. First, you ask them a direct question, and you ask a little bit more, and then next thing you know, you talk with them every single week.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I mean, that's the thing, is you have to make the interaction easy for the other person. Like, how can you make the other person responding as effortless as possible without them just responding with like a yes/no answer, right? To me, that's a paramount skill that you should work on, and you should think about what type of messaging you would like to get if someone is reaching out with a cold email to you.
Cool. All right, so we're actually, this is perfect. We're basically about to hit the deadline. I just thought one last thing is any shout outs, any recommendations of other channels that you'd recommend people look at? Any friends, any whatnot? Data Professor. All right, we got
Data Professor.
There's so many. Well, first check out Tina's YouTube, Andrea's YouTube. I think they're both on Instagram as well. Something I do every Friday, my friend Harpreet Sahota has a happy hour. I like stopping in on that. A lot of data professionals coming in, talking there. I have to say, I love everyone that goes into that chat room. Honestly, the list would be too long, and I don't want someone to be like, "Oh, you didn't include me." So that's the easiest way to include a lot
smart.
of people.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, I'm sorry if I don't include you. I'm just gonna list some channels off the top of my head, which I think are just like, they're at the top of my head. Please don't come after me if I don't list you.
Go after her.
Kenji, and then there's Andrea, and then also Alex the Analyst, Luke Bruce. I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong again, Luke.
No,
I
you
apologize
nailed it.
for.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I feel like I pronounce his name wrong every time. There's Krish Naik. Who else?
StackQuest, come on.
Oh my god, how could I forget StackQuest? That's just freaking. This is like the OG. I think StackQuest, right?
Bam.
Yeah.
I'm actually talking with him tomorrow on my live stream for 66 Days of Data.
Oh,
that's great.
Okay. Tell him I say hi. No, I don't know if he actually remembers me, but tell him I say hi. I'm like his biggest fan.
Okay, great. Andrea, anything else? We're just about out of time, so this actually worked out quite well.
I was just going to say that I think they know a way bigger community on YouTube than what I know so far. So I will have to do my research as well. Yeah, so, I mean, I follow a lot of these ones that they 2-minute papers and things like that I like to follow, that they explain the papers. And a lot of people, I have a friend who also does similar to me. We build machine learning C++. His name is Gerard. We do that type of thing on YouTube. It's really nice. And obviously the people who is present here as well. And all the community that they mentioned, that I will be the first one to check all of them.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We actually fully filled out the time slot. It was such a pleasure to talk to everybody and get such varied viewpoints about the field. A big round of applause from our virtual audience, and we will see you at our next session.